So absolutely not, right? Absolutely not, right?
Ever since I found out Harriet Tubman is not a real person, it fucked me up.
Right. Okay. All right. Yep. Let's take a ride. I'm going to get my lights and I'll be right back. Let's take a ride. Hey, cool kids. I'm pretty sure I like this lighting setup. I was hoping to get some natural light, but this is fine. It's going to have to do because, Lord, it's an emergency, ain't it? So if you have been on the internet in any way in the last couple of days, there's been a video circulating of a sister saying that, let's just play it. Let's just play a little bit. And I will start off by saying a couple of things. Number one, she has posted an apology video, a pretty thorough apology video, and trying to explain what I think she meant. And she's not the first nor the only person that believes or believed that Harriet Tubman is not real. I did not know that that was a sentiment in certain communities in certain corners of the internet. So let's leave it right there and then hit play.
Ever since I found out Harriet Tubman is not a real person, it fucked me up. I'm not gonna lie. Her real name is Araminta Ross, a spy for the United States. And they want us to look up and idolize these people. Oh, well, they look just like me, so I must look up to them. Stop that shit immediately.
Also, am I crooked? Am I crooked? There are quite a few things here that concern me. So before we even get to talking about Harriet Tubman and some of my favorite facts about her, I want to talk about what could even create a thought process like that, and what could even create video like that. You see what I'm saying? I'm quite concerned as a teacher, as someone who studies Black history, as someone with a master's degree in African and African American studies. This is deeply concerning. It's deeply concerning, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable. I have notes. Got notes, because some of us out here, like the intellect, it's okay to have notes when we're talking. Almost like some people do that because they think before they speak. Anyway, so let's go over a couple of terms first. Anti-intellectualism, logical fallacies, overcomplication, oversimplification, false equivalencies, false dichotomies, and false causes. These are some of the things that have made it increasingly hard both to teach and to learn, particularly as our current government in the US wants to make it harder and harder for us to learn. We need to become better learners. We need to unlock learning again. And I think that there are so many things preventing that from happening. And when you are not the best learner, you might end up taking in pieces of information and coming to conclusions and spitting things back out that are just simply not true, right? So anti-intellectualism is a distrust in intellectual thought and the people who embody intellectual thought, who create intellectual thought. So anti-intellectualism at its peak in my lifetime definitely happened at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. So once a vaccine for COVID-19 was developed, that's probably the biggest example that I can give you in the modern era of anti-intellectualism. All of a sudden, people who spent their life's work developing vaccines, preparing for maybe a once-in-a-lifetime thing happening in their lifetimes, are all of a sudden not to be trusted. All of a sudden, the top doctors, the top virologists, the top immunologists, all of a sudden, the people that create the knowledge about how we understand infections, diseases, how diseases spread, how to prevent them, all of a sudden, the people that created the knowledge were not to be trusted. Now, we've always had pockets of anti-vax communities, and they've all been grounded in this anti-intellectualism, that there are large groups of people who claim to be smart, who have earned degrees in certain areas, and all of a sudden you can't trust them. So that's my biggest example. And you see anti-intellectualism in many different ways. And here I want to pause and talk specifically about the phenomenon of anti-intellectualism. Oh, I forgot something. I'll circle back. I want to talk specifically about anti-intellectualism within the Black community. Okay. The Black community has very good reason to have distrust in a white system that is providing us with information, right? That is particularly providing information to us about us, right? So I understand the need to question why there are certain historical figures that are pushed to us over others. I see the need to question why we don't hear full stories about some of our heroes in Black American history, or in African history, no less. But we have to be careful. We have to make sure that a healthy skepticism does not turn into anti-intellectualism. We have to make sure that a healthy distrust of white supremacy does not spiral into something dangerous, does not spiral into Harriet Tubman was not a real person. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Circling back to that term I forgot, pseudo-intellectualism. Someone who is participating in pseudo-intellectualism is cosplaying as someone smart. Think of it like that. Pseudo-intellectualism is the phenomenon of smart cosplay. And a pseudo-intellectual, or someone who engages in pseudo-intellectualism, is someone who is cosplaying being smart, right? And a lot of times a pseudo-intellectual will use anti-intellectualism to prove why they should be trusted over other people. How often do we hear somebody say, just because you don't have a degree don't mean you're not smart? Just because you don't have to have a degree to, well, all right. Look now. Okay, cool. So your mom needs heart surgery, but they're going to give you a cardiologist that does not have a medical degree. Don't have no license, don't have nothing, that watch YouTube videos on how to do heart surgery, and they're going to operate on your mama. All right. So there are some things that you do need a degree. Okay. Right. The devaluing of intellectualism in order to prop up someone who is cosplaying it is something that we have to look out for. And it's something that, in the rise of internet platforms, in the rise of social media, is something that we really have to be careful about. You got to be careful about who you're listening to. When it comes to important issues, when it comes to issues that are important to you, when it comes to sensitive matters, right? Black history is a very sensitive matter. When it comes to issues that are sensitive and close to you, at this point in time, I'm sorry, I wouldn't recommend listening to someone that does not have the proper formal knowledge to assess the situation, to apply that to the situation we're in right now. I'm sorry, I wouldn't do that. And I'm actually not sorry about it. Now, listen to me now. I am not saying that you have to have a degree to be listened to. I'm not saying that you have to have a degree to be smart, but I'm saying right now, this is a really bad time to try to learn Black history from someone who doesn't have formal education in it. And my recommendation is based on what's happening right now. And right now is a very dangerous time to be listening to people in a specific subject area who are not formally trained in it, right? And that goes for people with degrees, right? I can't get online and say, I have a degree in African American history, and so I can be anti-vax. You know what I mean? You should listen to me about vaccinations because I have a degree in African American history. And so now you put me, and for example, I'll put his name right here. His name is Nick. He's an immunologist with a platform, and both of us have degrees, correct? But if the topic is vaccinations, you should not be listening to me. You should be listening to the immunologist. You should be listening to the immunologist. If the conversation is about slavery, you should be listening to me. And if the conversation is about a history of medicine being practiced on Black people without their consent, then maybe you should listen to both of us. See, I hope you hear what I'm saying. I really, really do. So that's anti-intellectualism, and pseudo-intellectualism more broadly can lead us to this point, right? Where we have not just a couple of people claiming that Harriet Tubman isn't a real person, but we can have several hundred comments of people saying, I knew something was strange. Yo, How do, yo. Like, what are we even doing? Okay, let's get to some of these other ones. I see a lot of overcomplication and oversimplification online, right? To the point where you can say,
ever since I found out Harriet Tubman is not a real person.
Okay, I have questions. How did you learn that? Where did you learn that? When I learned how to drive, I took driver's ed. And so I can talk about my experience learning how to drive. I need you to talk about your experience learning that Harriet Tubman was not a real person. To simplify the learning process into someone told me this and now I believe it, that's an oversimplification of the learning process. And it can make you not the best learner because you end up being, quite frankly, just gullible, right? Just believing something that someone says. Making the learning process overcomplicating certain issues on the other side of that is also a problem, right? Now there is no shortage of complexity for any given issue, including the one we're talking about right now. But the overcomplication of a simple statement can make stuff really, really muddy. It's another thing that can end up making you not the best learner. Looking to complicate things that are actually not that complicated, right? Oh, Sojourner Truth's real name was Isabella Bumfrey. That's true. But to complicate that and turn that into, therefore, she must not be real. Harriet Tubman, that is not her birth name. That is not the name given to her at birth. But to overcomplicate that and turn that into, that must mean she's not a real person. I don't know. Or she just got married. When you got married and you changed your name, does that mean you're no longer a real person? And we also have to be real careful. We got to be real careful about, that's why I say about the times we living in now, because we're also living in times where transgender people are being told that they are not real people because their names that they're choosing for themselves are not the names that are on their birth certificates, right? So to tell Sojourner Truth that she's not a real person because her name was Isabella Bumfrey at birth, we really have to be careful with the logic that we are using to name that. Harriet Tubman got married, and her last name is Tubman as a result. These are particularly dangerous, particularly when you are talking about Black people, because these are tactics that are used to get people to go to get people to come to the wrong conclusions about Black people in America. And it's also something that is meant to inhibit your learning process. Making false dichotomies, making false equivalencies, and making false causes are all tactics that people will use to stop your learning process. So really simple false dichotomy is you're either with us or against us, as if there can be nothing in between. As if being with you is something good and being against you is something bad, right? A false dichotomy leaves no room for actual nuance in a conversation. So claiming that you either believe the white man's history or you don't, for example, it's a very false dichotomy, right? Because it creates this idea that there is no in between, and there's no way that anything that we learn in school can be true. So either everything's true or everything's not. And because you decide that you're a person that doesn't believe anything we were taught in school, here you are thinking that because you learned about Harriet Tubman in school, she must not be real. Like this is like we must, which leads right into the false cause argument. It's quite similar. You might hear it said as correlation is not causation. So if I said, I don't know, people buy more pizza in the wintertime, and in the wintertime, people wear coats. Does that mean that wearing a coat will make you buy pizza? Is that what that means? Like, just because the coat and the pizza are both in the wintertime doesn't mean that the coat and the pizza have anything to do with each other. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, do you see what I'm saying? If I walk in a room and you walk in a room and we walk in that room at the same time and somebody points to us and says, y'all must be related. And we're looking at each other like, no, we're not related. But you walked in here at the same time. You're both in the room. Well, people walk into rooms that are not related to each other all the time. Correlation does not equal causation. Well, you're both here at 1 p.m. for your reservations. Well, yeah, we have reservations for 1 o'clock, but they're at different tables. We don't know each other. But if somebody in that room came in there and snapped a picture and said, see, here's proof that you're related to Sunny. And we go, what? Y'all are in the same room. That means y'all are cousins. Well, no. Correlation does not equal causation. It's because there is a correlation between American schools and inaccurate teachings of history. That does not mean that because you learned about Harriet Tubman in school, that Harriet Tubman isn't real. You understand? Y'all understand what I'm saying? You understand? And then the other falsehood is the false equivalency. We've kind of gone over it, but just to say explicitly, false equivalency is naming two things as the same that are just not the same. So we can even go back to how that feeds into anti-intellectualism and pseudo-intellectualism, right? Very, very famous false equivalency is the idea of reverse racism. Right? The idea that a white person's feelings being hurt is the same thing as racial oppression. It's false equivalency. We know that hundreds of years of oppression, suppression, slavery, Jim Crow, all the things that Black people have been subjected to is nowhere near the same. Another false equivalency that I hear a lot more than I would like to is that the Black Panthers, oh, you know the Black Panthers, they're just like the KKK, but Black. No, not at all. That could not be further from the truth. Did the Black Panthers go around lynching people? Solely because they were white. It's one of the false equivalencies that gets on my nerves the most. So these are a lot of things that I've seen, particularly that I've seen online, that I've seen develop in the last 5, maybe 10 years. Our presidency does not help. I knew that we were in trouble, that we would be on a faster path to anti-intellectualism with the election of Donald Trump, because here you have people who have done politics their whole lives, and some random rich guy who ran a TV show says, I could do it. Why not? Donald Trump's election, plus the internet, just internet culture and social media culture in general, really set the ball rolling, has really led us to a place where you can say things like vaccinations don't help you, where you can say things like Harriet Tubman is not a real person. And there are some people who will think that that's credible information. Anti-intellectualism leaves a society vulnerable to a lot of things. It leaves a society vulnerable to fascism. Anti-intellectualism, it leaves marginalized groups vulnerable to exploitation. Anti-intellectualism puts women at risk for abuse and harm. Anti-intellectualism really sets the stage for a lot of bad things to occur. And so we really need to nip this in the bud. So at the end of the day, I am not glad that Miss Girl made that video. I'm not glad that there are groups of people who believe that Harriet Tubman does not exist. But what I am glad about is that the intellectuals are stepping to the front of the line. The people who have a passion for learning and knowledge and sharing their learning and sharing their knowledge, sharing their expertise, have pushed to the front of the line. The people who are hungry for knowledge and expertise are stepping up to the front of the line and saying, who can we learn from? Are saying, I know that ain't, I don't know what's right, but I know what's wrong. And I know that's wrong. How do I learn? But like, how do I become a better learner? How do I gather proper, trusted knowledge? People are coming to the front of the line and asking for that. And that's something that I can be satisfied with, because that's something I can work with. Let me edit this. I'm trying out a new mic. Let's see how everything is looking. And in my next video, we're going to talk about Harriet Tubman. All right. See y'all later.